Hello everyone. Today I'll talk about Tony Hawk and American Horse on the Wounded Knee massacre from 1890 and 1891. This document contains first-hand testimonies from two Lakota Sioux leaders, Tony Hawk and American Horse, who witnessed one of the most tragic events in the U.S. history, the Wounded Knee massacre. Through their words, we gained a deeper understanding of how Native Americans experienced U.S. expansion and federal violence. First, I want to talk about the authors, Tony Hawk and American Horse. Tony Hawk and American Horse were Lakota Sioux leaders who provided direct testimony to the U.S. Commissioner of Indian Affairs in 1891. They personally witnessed the massacre and described how the U.S. Army surrounded their camp, demanded the surrender of weapons, and then opened fire. Then I want to talk about the historical context. The massacre took place on the 29th of December 1890 at Wounded Knee Creek, South Dakota. The U.S. Army's 7th Cavalry Regiment surrounded a Lakota Sioux camp as part of federal efforts to suppress indigenous resistance to U.S. policies. Soldiers demanded that Lakota surrender their weapons. In the process, a single gunshot was fired, possibly by accident. The soldiers then opened fire indiscriminately, killing over 250 men, women, and children. As Tony Hawk described, when they had delivered them up, the men were separated from their families, and there was a crazy man and fired his gun, and the soldiers returned fire. These massacres symbolized the end of large-scale Native armed resistance against U.S. expansion. Then I want to talk about the author's arguments. The central message of the testimonies is clear. The killings were unjustified and indiscriminate. Even though the Lakota surrendered their weapons and posed no threat, the soldiers fired upon everyone, men, women, and children alike. American Horse gives a heartbreaking account. There was a woman with an infant in her arms who was killed as she almost touched the flag of truce. The women and children were stranded all along the circular village. The tune of the testimonies is deeply emotional, highlighting how federal policies turned violent and how Native communities endured extreme trauma. The significance of it. Then I want to talk about the significance of it. The Wounded Knee massacre holds profound historical significance. First, it marked the symbolic end of Native resistance to U.S. expansion. Second, it demonstrated the violent suppression of Native sovereignty and culture by the U.S. government. Finally, these testimonies provide a real indigenous perspective on one of the darkest chapters in American history. American Horse words remind us of the tragedy. All the Indians fled in these three directions, and after all of them had been killed, a cry was made that all these who were not killed and wounded should come forth and they would be safe. This source allowed us to hear native voices directly, voices that were often silenced in official records. Studying this primary source is deeply moving. It forces us to confront how U.S. westward expansion came at the cost of indigenous lives and cultures. These testimonies make it clear that the massacre was not simply an accident, but part of a broader pattern of federal violence and displacement. It also raises important questions for us today. Why did the U.S. Army fire even after Locato surrendered? How did this tragedy shape later federal policies toward Native Americans? By listening to these voices, we gain a better understanding of historical memory, injustice, and the lasting consequences of government policies. In conclusion, Turning Hawk and American Horses testimonies are not just historical documents, they are living voices from the past. They help us see Wounded Knee through the eyes of those who survived it, reminding us that U.S. expansion was not inevitable and came with tremendous human cost. That's all. Thank you for your watching.